Wesley Vissers, the Dutch IFBB pro, Olympian, famous YouTuber and content creator of vintage aesthetics, and the winner of the Arnold Classic 2024, IFBB Romanian, IFBB Poland, and IFBB France Pro in 2019, 2021, and 2022.
It's hard to put into words, but the muscle soreness I got after he put me through that workout, I've never felt anything like that before. This isn't just something, a skill you learn, but it's a realization. You can go a lot further and deeper than you thought you could. I gained, 14 kilograms, which is over 30 pounds during the prep for the next show.
Whoa!
So I did a DNA test to see what my ancestry was originally, but it comes with a lot of other raw data. So I uploaded it to ChatGPT and I asked it, find out for me everything that's relevant for bodybuilding. I don't have the best genes for insulin sensitivity or the best genes for cholesterol, but also liposomal glutathione. I need to take that because I also follow Vigorous Steve quite a lot, and also Dean, and I listen to their anabolic roundtable. The only downfall about it is that it's so expensive in my opinion. Controversially, leanness promotes insulin sensitivity, but growth hormone affects it negatively as well, so there's a balance there, and I think for everybody this is different. So the best thing to do would be...
What was the day today?
Leg day, so very important day for me. Also did a blood draw this morning. Always a busy schedule. Of course, with kids, it's an entirely different story. But, we're making it work.
Yeah. Well, I guess both of those things are really big topics that I was curious about, too, with your own plan right now. First off, I don't understand how you manage having kids and competing at the same time.
Yeah,
I'm astounded by that. One of my buddies, Eric Janicki, is kind of in the same spot. He has two really, really young kids, and he was telling me about prior to when he got his pro card, he had a lot of trouble being present with his family. I think in the last few weeks of prep, the how excruciatingly low the calories were in his diet would start to cause him to phase out while he was with him, and which could be, I think, depending on how you look at it, a pretty monumental and I think drastic thing to handle when you're dealing with really young kids.
True.
So I don't know. It was a pretty stressful for his family, at least, that he opened up about. So I'm impressed that you're able to do it.
Appreciate it. Yeah,
I don't know if I'll ever be there.
It's an art. It's an art to, they always say in high professional sports, there isn't really a balance, but you can still strive for it. And it really has a lot to do also with the way you approach things in terms of managing stress as well. You can either stress about certain things. For example, just a small example of many, like your kids. They're kids for a reason and they make a mess, for example, or they wake up earlier. You can take it as a negative and say, oh, I got to clean this up. I got to clean up after them. It's not fitting in my schedule. Or you can think, hey, this is extra neat. This is extra calories burned during the prep. And this is extra cardio, extra steps. And it really depends on how you approach each situation, on how it affects your day, and then how it affects your week and affects your whole prep, basically. So really, to me, it's stress management and the way your mindset around certain situations is the key factor into managing and balancing the family life out with professional bodybuilding.
Gotcha. I've listened to a little bit of your story and a little bit of your own protocols and stuff on your YouTube channel and various podcasts. But I guess what would you say is are the primary ways that you manage your own stress? I know that you also discussed doing steps at one point.
Yeah. Basically, as a father, your number one stress is indeed what you mentioned at the beginning, kind of feeling guilty of not spending enough time with your family because you have a family for a reason. You're a father, you have a responsibility. So to me, it's really the mental stress it would give me to not be able to spend time with them. So I've created kind of a situation in my life where every single day I'm able to spend like breakfast with them, do the morning walk with them, do the after dinner walk with them. I usually also cook for the family, for example, every single night. So there are plenty of moments.
Awesome.
Yeah. There are plenty of moments in the day where I do spend time with them and do stuff with them. But honestly, it also has a lot to do with how your partner deals with you being a bodybuilder. And luckily, I met her literally, like I'm sitting right now in the office of the gym. And I met her here in the gym. So this is originally her own gym, and now it's our gym.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
So I thought I don't know why I just assumed that you guys started it together.
Yeah, well, we met in the month that the gym was open, so we pretty much started together, but I did really see it as her gym in the first few years, as it was more of a CrossFit related gym. But now, obviously, it's more of a bodybuilding gym since I got involved a lot. But,
Wow.
she has done bodybuilding competitions in the past, so she knows exactly when I'm a little bit more, because you can't really prevent that, a bit more distanced emotionally during prep, for example.
Yeah.
She understands where that comes
yeah.
from. She has experienced the hunger levels and the lower energy levels, for example, so she knows exactly where, how that feels. But also, I'm in a unique, very fortunate situation that I'm able to make this as a career. So it actually gives back something as well. So especially last year when I won the Arnold, our whole gym pretty much transformed in terms of being able to get new equipment, allowing my income, allowing her to take more hours off from the gym to spend more time with the kids, for example. All of these things enrich her life as well. So she, in turn, when I have to go to the gym, she then doesn't mind to spend more time with the children than I'm able to. So it's really how you handle every single day as a family and how you support each other in your day-to-day life, because she does have responsibilities at the gym. So I can see the schedule. I know, okay, I gotta work out before she goes to the gym. So we kind of switch around babysitting our own kids that way. So they're never really alone, or we never have to rely on other people. They're always pretty much at home, which is a big benefit for me as well.
Did she start off in CrossFit first?
Yeah, the very first thing she was as a professional judo athlete, actually almost going to the Olympics, even at that level. But then she had too many injuries. And, when you get injuries in judo or any fighting sports, you kind of are forced to quit. And then she had to find another challenge, which was actually bikini fitness, like a body fitness physique class, which was something you could do in the Netherlands as before the IVB Elite and the NPC split off. Then there were different classes still as an amateur. So she did a few bodybuilding bikini competitions before, and then she was like, okay, this is not really for me. She wanted to challenge herself physically instead of like, you're at your worst when you look your best. She just wanted to be at her physical best at all times. So then she started CrossFitting, doing competitions there, and starting a gym that way. But she is somebody who really wants to challenge herself every single time. It doesn't really matter which sport it is, as long as it's challenging, she's happy about it.
Oh, that's sick. That's cool. That's something that I find really admirable in a woman. My own partner, I don't know. I think when I don't know if this is exposing myself. The first time I met her was at the Young LA gym, and when I saw her, she had those like cap shoulders, and I'm like, oh, she looks like a competitor.
Yeah,
immediately. Yeah,
you can
it's that
tell
energy, Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah, because to enrich the story of before, I met her at this gym, but I met her when she was eating out of a Tupperware container.
Yeah.
So without even saying a word, you kind of already know what kind of a person it is.
Yeah.
You immediately understand each other way more when you even see something small like that. And that's pretty much how it got started. And to this day, it has really helped that we both had that experience and that discipline to put into the sport.
That is so cool. Huh. So you didn't actually secretly convert her into bodybuilding.
No.
It wasn't actually your fault.
The funny thing is, we did the exact same competition back in 2013 when I won my first bodybuilding show as an amateur. But she did the same show with then in bikini. And the funny thing was, her father was sitting in the audience, and he already said to her about me, I think that guy is going to win. And that's how they kind of still had me in their mind all those years later. Then I came to this gym, and I didn't even come to this gym to work out. I came to this gym because a physical therapist was here who had a big name in the Netherlands as who could help like bodybuilders and stuff. So I came here, but they were running this space together. So he was paying half the rent, she was paying half the rent. So I got here for him, but I met her at the same time. So that's really, and it was 45 minutes away. So we would have never met otherwise. It was too far away. So some things are just meant to happen.
Oh, that's awesome, bro. Kind of gives me a little bit of chills. Total tangent, by the way, but I actually lived in the Netherlands for about 3-4 months when I was like 7 years old.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, my family, obviously I was in the, I don't even remember anything, obviously, because I was 7 years old, but
yeah,
they put me in like the kindergarten there. And I just remember, I think this is when Hagenslag first came out.
yeah. Yeah.
Bro, I would douse my bread in that shit, man.
Yeah.
It was crazy. I'm pretty sure I also saw my first like titties on a poster when I was there. I feel like,
yeah, I don't know how far you were away from Amsterdam, or
yeah,
could be a cause there. But yeah, what you mentioned, hagelslag, it was a very popular thing to put in your bread as a child for me as well. Not the healthiest thing, but very popular.
Yeah, for real. I mean, I could still kind of wish it was still around. I feel like I would have used it for pre-workout nowadays.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So I guess one thing I'm curious about, because in my opinion, legs have been my weakest muscle group personally as well, and it's been something I've had to do a lot of experimentation with in terms of growing. I remember originally back when I was in college, I had a little bit more of a, I don't know if I would call it just kind of that college age mindset where I would go to the gym and I'd be like, I'm going to give it my absolute all. And then I would end up just maxing out on 8 reps on squats with as many plates as possible. And you know, when you're going to the gym and you're trying to put as many plates as possible and you want to look good with as many plates as possible, you also tend to go extremely close to failure on the first few sets. So I would normally end up burning out to the point where I think my maximum effort and optimal load was for like maybe 3 sets of squats. And after that, I would try to do my hamstrings and my calves and my other, my other quad exercises, and I would honestly just be burnt out by that point. So none of that was optimal in my personal opinion. At least 75% of the actual workout wasn't optimal. So I guess my curiosity right now is considering that I think we all can agree that you have some of the craziest upper body proportions on the stage. What is your plan now that you're planning to take this long period of time off to grow?
Yeah. So the whole reason I'm taking this time off is a short backstory about the Arnold Classic. So I did the Arnold Classic last year. I won it, of course. And then I won the Arnold Classic UK. So I was on a big hype train also for myself. And then you always want to take things a little further, even though I could have just been the exact same as at the Arnold, at the Olympia, for example. But you want to be a bit more crisp. But what you then notice is the weak points you have, those things start to fade first. So my legs were pretty good in proportion at first, but that's when your body fat is still in a healthy level. But when you drop down just a percentage too low, it seems like your body draws the energy, draws the fat and the fullness from your weak body part. And for me, that's the legs. Mm-hmm. And at the Olympia, I wasn't as full. Also, the Steve Weinberger also literally said he wasn't full enough as at the Arnold. So that's when I tried to take the next Arnold of this year differently. And the prep went a lot more smooth. I actually told my coach a few weeks before going on stage, I'm afraid that I'm not going to make weight, because obviously classic physique, you need to make weight for your height. And I was still like 4 kilos, almost 10 pounds above my weight limit. And it was like 3 weeks before, not even. And I was already super conditioned. But that's because me and my coach, we took the prep differently. We kept the fullness in the legs. I almost didn't do any cardio, like 20 minutes max. I took it all from the lowering of the carbs and steps, basically, just to keep the legs intact. But then I got pretty sick, as I also mentioned on my YouTube channel, like the day of the flight, the day before, I got so sick, let's just say, to make a very long story short, I lost like 15 plus pounds in like 2-3 days, which was, you can't really recover from this no matter how much you're trying to load. But the funny thing is, well, at least to me it's funny, when you look at the pictures that I sent my coach, the legs were so skinny all of a sudden. The upper body was still reasonable, but the legs, they went away immediately. And that still told me, even though during the prep everything seemed pretty balanced, the moment you get sick and then still your legs go away first, that means it's still a weak point. It's not really solidified yet. And that's what my coach told me as well. You were like at the end stage of building that muscle and really making it your own, but only one thing has to go wrong and you lose the legs immediately. So that's when I realized, okay, instead of trying to bring them up in between shows and during preps, we have to solidify this muscle in between shows, taking a way longer break. So that's why I'm taking this break right now. And to really answer your question, of course, my upper body is a strong, the strongest part of my whole physique is the upper body, basically, and the lower body needs to be better in terms of fullness and proportion with the upper body. So what we're doing, at least that's the most difficult part for me, is lowering the effort and the volume for the upper body, as that's simply, even if no gram of muscle will be added to the upper body, it would still be enough to compete with the top guys. But I need to put all my recovery capability into the lower body. And the workout, how it looks then, is I'm still doing what I've always done, kind of legs, push, pull, rest, split. But the volume within the leg day is pretty much 50% higher than usual, and the upper body days are then 50% less. So the upper body days, I don't even really go to extreme failure anymore. Like the moment I feel that my reps are starting to slow down, I'm like, okay, this is enough, because I don't want the upper body to take any recovery from the legs. But with the legs, I really go all out. And I've been, of course, training with my own coach, training with Hani Rambod, taking tips from a lot of people, like from Phil Heath, Jay Cutler, like everybody who had amazing legs on stage and everybody with knowledge about training legs. I've pretty much taken their knowledge and applied it to my own training. Like my own coach, he realizes the quads themselves are not too bad, but it's more about the glutes, any hamstrings. Like when I turn around, the back has a good V taper, but then it goes into a Y instead of like an X. And you need an X frame from the back as well instead of a Y frame. Right. And I need more glutes and hamstrings and more width in the legs, basically. So he taught me a different way of performing like a leg press or a hack squat. Instead of thinking about pushing with the quads, he's like more about catching the weight with the glutes and the hamstrings. So kind of turning the whole rep around instead of thinking about, okay, I got to use the quads to push the weight. It's more about using the hamstrings and the glutes to control the weight. And it doesn't matter how much weight you do, because we're bodybuilders. It's all about how much effort you put into the muscle and what the muscle itself experiences. And then, of course, combining that with every now and then doing Hani Rambod's FST 7 sets, which are which are killing. I've done it with him. And,
I can't imagine that for your legs.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Like then honestly, it's hard to put into words, but the muscle soreness I got after he put me through that workout, I've never felt anything like that before. I'm like, this isn't just something, a skill you learn, but it's realization, you can go a lot further and deeper than you thought you could. Because, I never got that soreness before, so that must mean there's more to unlock here instead of the workouts I used to do before. So I actually like doing intensity techniques like this to truly, what he calls it, kind of open up the fascia. And it doesn't really matter scientifically what happens. All that matters is it puts you into a position of more growth. It puts you beyond where you would normally go. And I need to do something different for the legs, as what I've been doing so far compared to the upper body hasn't been enough. So that's why I'm taking much longer off, using different but proven workout techniques, and staying in a higher body fat and a higher body weight for much longer to really solidify that muscle mass, instead of like just getting there and then going back to prep and kind of not really solidifying that muscle mass. So in a nutshell, that's what I'm doing right now.
I think I feel like Nick Walker, more than anybody, really kind of showed that example too, that like from the back, having those full ass legs can, I mean, you know, given the fact that he had also just like a very grainy, dry back though, I mean, being able to beat basically one of the best backs in bodybuilding, because he had the entire full package from top to bottom from his back double bi, kind of just shows just how much that makes a difference in your entire package.
Yeah, I was there in Pittsburgh, and I was at one of the pretty much the front row. So beforehand, I predicted, okay, I think Derek is going to win. Nick is only going to stand a chance if he brings the package he brought before when he was at his best. But when I saw him in real life, that was just a different Nick Walker. You know, it doesn't even translate, as everybody always says, on the pictures and the videos in real life. And when they turn around, like you say, that back double bicep is so complete, it's really hard to ignore. And then he stands next to Derek Lunsford, and you're like, well, there's no way he's going to beat him. But then the graininess and the density and the quality in Nick's muscle, in combination with the proportions, in my opinion, I thought he beat Derek Lunsford at that show, especially from the back, which I really did not expect. But that was a very special show for sure.
Yeah, I did not expect that either. It was honestly fucking insane.
Yeah.
But regarding the intensifiers too, this is one of my favorite things to discuss, because you know we really don't have hardly any studies on this, you know, and any studies that we do have regarding optimal ways of training and hypertrophy are obviously on individuals that aren't including all the, I guess, the copious amount of variables that we have, including enhancements, you know. But there's so many things that us as competitors and bodybuilders do that are just different from, I think, the average, that just makes it really hard to I think look at any other, I don't know, I feel like it's just harder for us to look at studies aside from a big amount of empirical data, you know, which obviously the coaches have the most of. And it's weird because, you know, I feel like it still qualifies as bro science in a way, but like I work with Patrick Tour, and I've experimented with the FST 7 sets and Patrick Tour's SST sets and all of these amazing intensifiers. And just as you say, bro, like there's nothing that gets me more sore. There's nothing that just gets me a bigger pump. It's just, I mean, obviously, you don't know, maybe like obviously there's studies that show that pump is not, the hypertrophy that you have post pump is not caused directly by the pump. There are simply correlations, and normally they're not direct correlations either. But there's definitely something to be said, I feel, of the amount of volume that we're pushing into, and this is volume towards failure, right? Like putting sets towards failure is shown, even 3 reps from failure, but within this margin is shown to stimulate the most growth. Like cramming that in a certain amount of time while inducing all these nutrients through the blood to your muscle, I just feel like there's just, I don't know, I just feel like if there's any way for you to just train fucking hard and build tons of mass, this is like the ultimate way to do it, in my personal opinion. But I don't know. What do I know?
Yeah.
But
I agree with that, because like you mentioned, there has been no studies at all, and there never will be, of guys like us pushing it to the max, who've already been pushing it to the max for years with optimal nutrition, supplementation, PED use, recovery, sleep, all that dialed in. Because the studies, like almost everybody who is in those studies, they will grow almost no matter what is going to be done to them, because they're still too fresh into the whole building muscle game. And I think in evolution, like of the human body, it's been designed to build a certain amount of muscle until a certain point, and then you have to do extreme measures to go beyond that barrier. And we are doing it, of course, with PEDs and with nutritional values you can't find in nature, like whey protein or so much carbohydrates or all kinds of minerals and vitamins you normally would never be able to gather in nature. So we already have that advantage. But then also with training, you have to tell your body, okay, like this is the bro science explanation, but pretty much your body has to think, okay, if I don't improve from this, I'm going to die next time. And that's how extreme, after like 10, 15 years of training, you have to give that impulse to your muscles, to your brain, to be able to actually build the muscle on top of what you already have, because there's been your body is so used to it. There's still that evolutionary factor into, if I build more muscle on top, it's going to be useless weight. It's going to be spending too much energy, because your body and your brain, they don't know that we are living in this comfortable world. They just respond to the stimuli they're getting from externally. So we have to make it more and more and more extreme. And the studies, they simply can't capture this, because nobody who's been training for so long is going to apply to such a study anyway, and they don't want to ruin their progress. Maybe 1 or 2, maybe 5, but no way there's going to be 50 guys of that level doing it all at the same time, using PEDs, taking months maybe off their progress, because one group always has to do something else than the other group to compare. So there's no way that's ever going to happen, I think, in my opinion. But that's why the intensifiers, that's exactly that thing that tells your body, okay, this was so extreme, we have to build that extra muscle. So the reps in reserve is all coming from research, from people who don't even have half the muscle mass built up like we do, and not even half of the resistance our body gives to wanting to build muscle. So you have to do something more extreme to make that same effect still happen so many years of doing resistance training. And that's where, like you mentioned, the empirical evidence, the anecdotal evidence, all the stories, all the practical evidence we're seeing in the biggest bodybuilders ever, they're always, pretty much always doing something more extreme than the studies are saying what is optimal to build muscle. So the proof is in the pudding that way. So all the biggest bodybuilders, almost all of them are doing something beyond what the studies would say is optimal. At least they will have built most of their mass that way. And only when you start getting injuries or like joints starting to hurt, you kind of start to move towards this more science-based full range of motion, optimal volume way to kind of preserve your bodybuilding longevity. But if you don't have any thing that bothers you in the training, you're still gonna train super hard pretty much until your body tells you can't anymore. So I think that's how most bodybuilders who are at the genetical elite at the top are training. But at the other hand, I do agree that science can prevent a lot of these injuries and things that prevent hard training. But it's not really going to be the way to get to that size, in my opinion. And that's also the thing, what we say about we're seeing all the biggest guys train differently from what the science says. You're also seeing all the people who do only train optimally. You almost never see super big guys coming out of that type of training. So there's kind of a problem there about what science says and what you practically in real life see happen. So that's the struggle basically between the bro science and the actual scientific world that I'm seeing right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a, it's the fun debate of bro lifters versus science-based lifters.
Yeah.
So to give, I guess, to give science a little bit of credit, and one thing that Patrick discusses that I also hold true, and I really believe at its foundation is and sorry, my brain's just working slowly. It's just one of those mornings, man.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But yeah, one of the things that Patrick really discusses that I love a lot is I think the fact that in the end, progressive overload does drive hypertrophy, right? Mm-hmm. Like that is the foundation for how we can make sure that we're improving every week. We're going to grow muscle as we grow in strength, as we increase in volume. But at a certain point, though, for a lot of us big guys, right? Or I mean, a lot of you big guys, it gets harder and harder and harder to progressive overload as you get bigger and bigger and more advanced and more advanced. And as you just, 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, 20 years down the line of you doing the exact same thing, growing, even with enhancements, at one point, your strength comes to a plateau. Like how long ago did we see Larry Wheels squatting 1,000 pounds? And what does he squat now? Like, I mean, I know that he's tailoring it more towards bodybuilding, but it's like, bro, even changing towards bodybuilding, it's hard for him to even maintain that strength, so much less progressive overload. So something that he's put forward and promoted is the idea that like once you get to such an advanced level where you just really cannot progressive overload anymore, there still has to be some kind of stimulus somehow. Mm-hmm. And what we've all seen in this world is there's been a lot of examples of like amazing adaptations that humans have had through extremely stressful periods, right? And I think this is just like a cool example of showing that like, hey man, maybe we can excel and exceed our body's capacities, things that we feel like we have limits on. Maybe we can exceed them by doing, I don't know, some crazy things that just cause our body to get stimulated. So I just really like this idea that like, once you start plateauing or getting to a certain point, you can push a little harder. And there may be different unique ways, but you can just push. So there's something that I really wanted to show you, by the way. I don't know have you heard of Michaela Aycock?
The name rings a bell.
Okay. So Terrence Ruffin showed me her and he showed me her insane transformation. So she is, I can't remember if she's got 6 IFBB Pro wins. She's a woman bodybuilder. I can't remember what her placements were at Olympia, but this is her transformation. I don't know if you can.
Oh yeah, I see. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you see her leg transformation?
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that not? Yeah. Isn't that not freaking insane?
Yeah.
So, I can't remember the exact protocol that she did. There was a point in time where she just increased her leg frequency immensely. But according to Terrence, and I think I saw this as well, but I think maybe there was either 6 months or to a year where she ended up just eliminating all upper body training, wow. And just did legs 3 or 4 times a week. And I guess her upper body just maintained the entire time. Yeah. Like she didn't lose any upper body mass, but her legs blew up from it. And it's just something that I always find interesting because I've heard some people before, I guess, overcompensate for their weaker body parts in these crazy immense ways. But I mean, I think as you've heard before, it's honestly pretty damn hard for us to lose muscle, especially if we're still eating the diet that we should be. So I just thought this, I don't know. I know you and Stefan already have your plans and everything. And I love how Stefan always focuses on form of an exercise and activating the muscle that you need to hit. But I just thought this was especially cool that she just like, bro, her legs just fucking like doubled in size and her upper body looks the same.
Before you even mentioned what she did, I was like, it's like the only thing that really grew were her legs, and the upper body, it went forward, but it was pretty much maintaining. Mm-hmm. Looking at those pictures, but the legs were just like 5 times the size. That's incredible. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's always like when you're in my shoes and you're at a pretty high level within the industry, you're getting a lot of different advices from a lot of different people.
Yeah.
And the problem is, all of them are coming from people who are legitimate. Like Hani is saying something different from my coach, who is saying something different from Phil Heath. And it pretty much just goes on and on. So you're like, okay, which side do I choose? Do I try them all, or do I stick to one? And it puts a little bit of a pressure on you because you have now about a year to improve. And at the same time, you're in the middle, pretty much the peak of your career. You don't want to make any mistakes, but you don't want to let any potential go either. So it's sometimes pretty difficult to really choose the right path. And the only thing I can then think of, at least it has to be something that is quite different from what I used to do before, because that obviously it worked up until a point, but not enough to be proportionate with the upper body. So that's kind of the challenge that I'm facing right now. It's like, I would honestly, if there was like a hyperbolic time chamber, I would love to only train the legs for a year and see, okay, what happens? What's gonna happen? But it's also a thing only works as well, just like a diet, as well as you are able to follow it, and as well as you don't have stress about doing it. Because I think, for example, if I would do a full year of, let's not make it so extreme, let's just say 90% leg training and 10% upper body training to be a little bit more comforted to keep the upper body mass, I would still, I think, be a bit stressed about thinking I'm losing something I had before, like my dominant upper body. I want that to remain a strength. I don't want it to be lessened in any way. So it's always going to be a challenge where you really 100% go for one training method and don't have any doubts about it, because that's going to be the number one killer, I think, of progress in the long run, because you got to be able to stick to a training method for long enough to see the actual outcome of it. And that's what bodybuilding is. It takes long to see something. And it just has to agree with you, which is why I also think you should choose training methods and exercises that are kind of like a balance between, you think it's kind of fun to do, but it also feels great on the body. It doesn't go against your anatomy, for example. Like, I cannot do back squats, to give an example, but if Tom Platz would have given me advice, he would say, stick to only back squats, do them as heavy as you can, as much volume as you can. You can always do 5 reps more. I mean, if I would do stuff like that, it would not be good for my physique, even though for him it worked wonderfully, because his anatomy allowed him to go up and down like a piston, basically, and it grew his legs to immense size. So everybody has to look for what fits their own body the most. And that's what I'm doing right now. It's really that's the fortunate thing about having an own gym, to literally purchase machines that you think feel great and then use those instead of like being left at the mercy of what a gym has to offer. So that really is a big benefit that I'm having right now, and I'm taking full advantage of it for sure.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. That's an extremely stressful place to be honest. Which I understand. My girl, for example, she has her coach, and then also, she is my partner and we live together. So, she'll pick me for advice, but then like, a good 25% of the time it doesn't align with her coach, and that puts her in this just crazy chaotic spiral, because she's just like, well, I have to freaking listen to my coach, but now I don't know if what I'm doing is right, and it just kind of makes it worse for her, to be honest, which I hate, honestly.
Yeah, it's difficult.
I mean, in the end, her coach and I both have the same ideologies. We both understand foundations of what will help her grow and improve, but it's like the smallest, tiniest little things, like whether to use L-carnitine or not, or something, or whatever, or if like Yohimbine's gonna spike your anxiety or not. So should you use Yohimbine right now or not? And it's just the smallest little thing. So I can understand that frustration, but I think regardless, whatever you do, man, it's pretty clear that you're going to put your energy into your legs, and you're going to put all your energy this year into improving what you need to improve on. So I think regardless of whatever you choose to do, you're going to improve a lot, and it's going to be cool to see.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's really very exciting to be part of this journey, and to have made it a career, and to be able to just wake up every day and do your very best to make it happen, and to have so many people who actually care and listen or watch or try to learn something. So that's why I really love that along the way that I'm improving myself, to show also to other people how I've done this. As you've probably also experienced, like people who might be in a similar situation as yourself, who have similar struggles, they reach out to you or send a DM and they tell you how much you've helped them, for example, but just by making content in general. And that's like my biggest example is always either people who are tall, like me, or people who have families. They always send me DMs of how inspirational it can be to see somebody actually doing the work and seeing that you can achieve something great if you just put in the work and never give up and put in the discipline. So it's just very motivating to be able to do this and at the same time help other people as well.
Yeah. I also remember hearing in a podcast, I believe, that you were discussing how you like first started training, and people used to call you Arnold before you even like knew about like bodybuilding, really. So it kind of just, I mean, for me personally, it would have just stayed there subconsciously in my mind as well. So I guess when you first started training, did you like, what were your like methods when you first started training to build the physique you have now? Because I know you mentioned something regarding like emulating some of Arnold's training, but do you feel like a lot of this was focused on like the same kind of exercises and training regimen he would do, like focusing on upper body and arms, or is there like, I don't know, I guess there's just so many different variables.
Yeah, so the first 6 years of my training before doing any competitions, those were really based on what my father told me, as he was quite strong and muscular himself, and he took us to the gym, me and my brother. We always trained together, and it was just the easiest form of progressive overload you can imagine. He just said, if you can do 6 reps with the weight, you should do heavier. The next set, you can do heavier. And that's how I progressed for like 6-7 years until I did my first show. But when you have done your first bodybuilding show, you automatically get into contact and in touch with a lot more experienced people, and you start watching other bodybuilders, especially around that time when I won my first show. That's when the Arnold comparisons came. And that's when I looked him up as well more seriously, and watching Pumping Iron and hearing him talk about the range of motion and the pump, for example, it really, and mind-muscle connection, it really changed my training. And then it clicked somehow intuitively when I saw him train, like how he does the T-bar row or the bent over row or the chest and back supersets, the concentration curl. I simply mimicked what he did, and it automatically felt so great and so logical for me at the moment. And I was still very young, like 20, 21, so I could do anything in the gym and recover pretty much. No injuries ever, like everything felt amazing. So I, like every single week, I would do like chest and back supersets, arm supersets, but pretty much all old school movements that he used to do in his own workouts. And it really worked for a long time. It really built substantial volume in my upper body. But yeah, for the legs, he didn't really have anything special. So I then looked to Tom Platz actually, but instead of the squats, I did his hack squat techniques. Like I called it the duck stance. So when you do the hack squat, I don't know if you've ever seen that video, but when he does the hack squat and he puts his knees like a few feet over his toes, like so far out, that's what I used to do back in the day as well, when I was still flexible enough to do so. And that technique actually really helped quite a lot. Also for calves going so extreme, because back in the day, like the calf development was like so disproportionately huge compared to my upper legs. It was like my calves were wider than my upper legs were. So it was some techniques really worked for me, but some also didn't really, because as I mentioned, being quite tall, you simply need different exercises to get into the range of motion to build enough muscle. But back then, I didn't know about the stretch-mediated hypertrophy, for example. So I just mimicked the exercises, but didn't really think about going to full depth. Like on the squat, going a little bit below parallel was already enough for me, because if I went deeper, it would be my lower back involved. It would have lower back pumps, for example. So I changed, like without even thinking about it, a lot of movements to fit my anatomy, but it didn't really grow the muscle I needed to. But yeah, like you mentioned, Arnold was a very big inspiration for me. I even mimicked his posing routines. And when I realized that he was pretty much the only one who could pose like that back in the day, and a lot of those poses fit my body pretty good as well, I started using some of those signature poses. Even to this day, it's like my favorite classic pose is still going to be the 3/4 front double bicep pose that he likes to do. And it's very it took a lot of practice to get that one right. And it's still, if you don't pose for a while and you try it, then you kind of feel stiff again, because it's really, you got to be really flexible with it. So those classic poses, they look very like flowy and fluent and easy to do, but the moment you do them, it's like you're stretching out a lot of different muscles at the same time to be able to hit that stance. So it's way more challenging than the traditional poses, but that's the beauty of classic bodybuilding, in my opinion. It's like what Arnold also used to say: no matter how difficult a pose feels, you should always make it look like it's very easy to do. And that's where the grace comes from, and you can be proud of yourself if you get through a posing routine without showing any effort at all. And that's one of the most difficult things to do, in my opinion, because you can do a posing routine and you can practice and you can do the poses you practiced, but to do it with classic poses and to do it gracefully and to really hit the poses correctly, that really it takes a lot of time. At least it did for me, especially the transitions, to do those correctly. So I have a lot of respect for the 70s bodybuilders as they perfected that kind of posing. It's a little bit lost today. Some people can still pose quite well, like obviously Terrence and Logan Franklin, and even Mike, who won the Arnold. They can all pose very well, but a lot of people, they kind of stick to the more easy poses, and they don't think it's that important anymore, which, it kind of is a shame for bodybuilding as an art, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I think, well, I hope, but I also maybe think maybe in a very small capacity that the judges are still paying attention pretty closely now to posing and presence. I think I feel like Terrence in the last couple of shows against Jose kind of showed that presentation. I mean, obviously he has the limbs and he has the proportions, but I feel like that presentation was a big thing that gave him a point up from Jose.
Yeah.
So
I think I've literally done a show before where they said it's very close between you and another guy. If you nail your posing routine, you're going to win. That's literally what was told me backstage. And so sometimes when it's very close, and I wasn't a professional yet, it was an amateur show, so kind of different criteria maybe, but I do think if it is very close, and I think it was between Terrence and Josema, again, I saw that battle in real life as well. Just insane how close that was, in my opinion. How different physiques, but still how close the battle was. I do think the presentation then plays a bigger role than usual. Like if the winner simply is overpowering the rest with their physique, as long as you do the mandatories right, you're going to win. But if it's very close, I think it could indeed come down to presentation. So it proves that presentation is something not to be underestimated. especially as a professional bodybuilder who really wants to always win the show.
Real quick, guys. So while I was looking at the YouTube analytics, I actually saw that 85% of you guys that watch this channel are not subscribed. And I want to ask very little of you guys, but if you enjoy this podcast, if you find value in it, then please do me this one favor and subscribe to the channel, because doing so helps me get bigger and greater guests like the guests you are listening to today. Also, this channel is not sponsored, which means only the companies that I work with, which are Young LA and Huge Supplements, are the companies that can help fund this channel by you guys using the code NILE. So code NILE gives you a discount of 15% off of Young LA, and code NILE also gives you a discount of 10% off of Huge Supplements. And if you decide to purchase anything from any of these companies, it will help immensely for me by using my code. And this way, I can travel to other guests and also upgrade in equipment to make this podcast bigger and better for you guys. You gotta, well, I mean, I know you are going to, but I just have to say, you got to keep those 3 classic poses that you transition to at the end of every like favorite classic pose. Those are so epic, by the way, bro. They look so good on your physique. It's crazy. I don't talk about this much, but when I blew up first and how I got big on social media was primarily through like workout videos and such on TikTok and Instagram. And honestly, I hate to say it, but I'd have to give most of the credit to TikTok, to be honest. That originally blew me up. And the thing that I would do is I believe I got famous for, one, how my physique looked, and also that like I just had this extremely small waist, and everyone would always tell me like, dude, you have the smallest waist. But every time I took a video, I would twist my hip as hard as freaking possible, man, as hard as possible. So literally my right hip bone was facing like straight towards the camera. Yeah. And I guess just people, like, you can't really, like, if you stand there and try to look like you're not cringing really hard, you know, it's hard to tell, you know, the illusion makes a huge difference. So true. My waist really isn't that small. I'm just really twisting really fucking hard, man. But there's this exercise, there's this machine that I saw recently pop up, and it's called the Schnell leg extension leg curl. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't.
No. I mean, I don't know how optimal this would be for a lot of people, but I personally have found I end my leg workouts with sissy squats. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I'll do like leg presses, and then I'll maybe do another compound, then I'll go to leg extensions, and then I'll end with sissy squats and do some intensifiers with the sissy squats. And I just love them because, you know, you have full hip extension while you're doing them. And I always get like the biggest pump from doing them. And I know it only stretches that one middle part of your quad, I guess, but still I always get the biggest pump from doing it. But I saw this guy doing this exercise that popped up on my page. Oh yeah. And bro, like, can you see this guy's literally like laying flat, and it's a leg extension? Yeah. Is that not crazy?
Did you know that Eric, I don't know how to say his last name, Janicki?
Janicki,
Janicki. He also does like a hybrid leg extension, but he puts like yoga blocks and pads in such a way that he's also almost laying all the way back. And he also said it really stretches out his legs in a way different manner than a usual leg extension. So it might be something to try. And also to once again go back to Tom Platz. If you see some of his leg extensions, he ends the leg extension also with that technique to kind of like his hips go up, which means the leg goes more straight, and he's laying down, and then he finishes off the exercise with a few of those reps. I think I've never felt it before, but it just watching that guy you just showed me, it already, I think it would get a great stretch and a feel in those quads for sure. Could be something to try out.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Eric is a personal friend of mine back over here in LA, and to be honest, like, you know, there's always going to be the haters in social media, and I know he gets a lot of shit for his like science-based training. Some people just think that he like trains like a puss, to be honest. And it's crazy because he has the deepest most perfect form, and he has more flexibility than I do. Like, I don't even have nearly as much hip hinge as he does. When I do, my hip fucking pops out on the right side. And I think Eric trains harder than anyone else I know here in LA, to be honest. And it's hard to explain, but like he'll go to the vertical leg press machine, and we'll go to failure, and we were working out with another one of our buddies, and our other buddy was just throwing up mid through the workout. So I mean, and Eric works out like that every single leg day he does. So it's pretty intense, honestly.
You can tell by the physique he brought to stage lately. I mean, it's he's making some incredible progress. So it must be working. I mean, that the way he trains, that is backed in science, but you can also see, when you watch his videos and you watch how he trains, like when you have experience in bodybuilding, you can just tell it's really stimulating those exact muscles and leaving other muscles out, because that's what bodybuilding is. You want to try to isolate what you're trying to target. Like a leg press, you just want those legs, especially the quads, to be targeted. And the way he does it, he has so much knee flexion that it's, the stimulus in the quads is just top to bottom maximized, because you can see he can't physically go deeper than how deep he goes. So you can't get more stretch in those quads. And you can tell by his stage pictures, I mean, the legs are huge, obviously, but they're getting bigger, even though, and what we mentioned at the beginning, it's very difficult to still stimulate muscle when you've already got a lot of size. So his training, it's like people who say that kind of training is for pussies or something. I mean, it's just try those full range of motion reps and sets, and those feel so much more challenging than double the weight and half the range of motion. So it really is a different way, but a very effective way to train. And he's living proof that it works. So,
right.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's like, you can do whatever form that you want to, whether or not you care about like your joints or not in the long run. But like, as long as you freaking go to failure, then you're going as hard as you can, like real failure. Yeah. And I don't know, have you seen his 3-year transformation?
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah.
Okay. So you saw that like his legs were the group that literally that grew the most in those 3 years.
Exactly.
It was like an immense amount too. So I think everyone trains and reacts differently, but just the amount of time under tension that he has under the weight per set is what blew my mind when I was training with him. It's like you could just feel the lactic acid build up to the point where it's like, it's all willpower from here.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you still? You mentioned that your dad used to be like, if you can hit it for 6 reps, then you can go heavier, which is fucking insane. Do you feel like you still train around that rep range now, or do you have like a greater variance now, or have you figured out do you know if you feel like you respond more to say higher reps than lower reps, for example?
It's definitely a bigger rep range now. So I honestly, I never really go below 8 anymore. An 8 is even an exception if I hit that. If I hit 8, it would have been a miscalculation that I would have thought I could have hit 10, and I couldn't hit 10. But in my opinion, I've been training now. I'm now 32. So I've been training for 17 years, 18 years. So it's been a long time. And the first few years, you can go heavy, low rep range, go for PRs even, because when you're young, you always want to see how strong you are, and you walk away unscathed. But right now, even if I wanted to go lower rep ranges, it's not really possible anymore, because it's too risky for me right now. I've never had an injury, but too many little things here and there where it just kind of messes up my long-term progress, because maybe for that one workout it would be great stimulus, but then the next morning when I had a heavy chest session, for example, I feel the rotator cuffs, I feel the joints. It's not going to be conducive to long-term growth for me. So you have to be then intelligent about your training, and then the science does kind of comfort you into them mentioning, from 5 to 30 reps is all pretty much equal in hypertrophy. As long as you mention you go to failure, then it's all going to work. Like, obviously 30 reps to failure is going to be extremely difficult, in my opinion, compared to like 12 reps, because it's mentally a lot more taxing. You're in the set for way longer. And if you push yourself mentally, all of a sudden you can do 5 more reps in that 30 rep range because the weight is very light. So it's quite difficult to find your 30 rep max, for example, but around the 10 to 15 rep range is pretty easy to gauge your true failure point. So that's where I stay. So it's a combination of pretty heavy weights, but still high enough rep range that the weight doesn't have to be super heavy to reach failure within that rep range. And then I usually do like the first 1 or 2 sets is that rep range, and I might go 15 plus on the last working set, kind of like the typical back off set, how people used to call it. So I reduce the weight, not by a certain percentage, but kind of instinctively, okay, I've done like 12 reps with this amount of weight. I'm just gonna think, okay, if I do 2 plates or 2 on a stacked weight machine, 2 less, then I might be able to do 15 plus reps. It's kind of like a feeling. So I used to be very particular about the numbers and logging everything to perfection, but that brings me a little more stress than it does good in the long run. It's kind of a combination of knowing what you did in the first 1 or 2 sets, and then depending on how those go, the third set and maybe even the rest of the workout is more instinctual on what just feels great for the muscle, and it kind of always works out in between the 10 and 15 rep range to hit failure there. And I think if that feels great as a workout strategy and it doesn't stress you out that you're not literally logging everything, then it will work great. But as I mentioned before, it's all about what gives you the most stress-free training and what is the most effective, like the balance between those two. Because I think the best bodybuilders ever, and you might have heard this before as well, Ronnie Coleman is the ultimate example of somebody who just trains hard and isn't stressed about anything. And he grew to incredible size.
Yeah.
And it's because he doesn't stress about anything. He just believes that training hard works regardless of what he does. That will usually, in the long run, have the best results. But that's why I also mentioned you got to be intelligent about your training, because yes, Ronnie Coleman is the best bodybuilder of all time, but he also reaped the consequences of training a little too heavy maybe towards the end. And that's not where I want to go with a family. I still want to be able to function after bodybuilding. So it's always going to be a combination of as effective as possible, but also with longevity in mind. So yeah. 10 to 15 rep range to me is worked really well.
Well, that's good news for me. I'm fucked. I stress about everything.
Yeah, it's difficult to change, but when I realized that whether I stress about it or not, some things you just can't change, and you might as well just experience it. And if you truly, to the root, understand that sentence, then you can let go of most of the stress. And that really is the key to fun in your workouts again. The reason why we pretty much all started training is because we thought it was fun. So you gotta find that enjoyment in your workouts with a combination of your experience in training and your knowledge about what works well. So that's why I don't do the best possible movements for me when they just are like hip thrusts, to give an example. My glutes need to improve, so hip thrust would be a smart movement to do. But whenever I do them, it's just such a struggle for me to get into the machine, to really go to failure on an exercise like that. My lower back also gets involved. It's like I don't really get a good experience from the exercise. So I then choose different movements, like also a sucky movement like the Bulgarian split squat. But at least with that movement, I feel the glutes so much more
Yeah.
It replaces the hip thrust for me completely. And then I just make the decision, okay, yes, I know the hip thrust would be a good addition to grow my glutes, but I'm not going to stress about now doing it because I just know the movement itself isn't conducive for me long term. So I'm just going to stick to different movements that I know are more fun to me and work as well. And then when you stick to those and you do the progressive overload thing and you do them for a long time, you will grow from those as well. So usually it's funny that optimal in theory usually never is optimal in practice.
Yeah.
And that's, in my opinion, what I've come to find out in all of these years. I've done it all before, but in long term, it really is as simple as you got to enjoy what you're doing as well.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a fantastic example. Even though Brett Contreras, the creator of the hip thrust, has two variants to it, and one is like the scoop method that he explains should hopefully have, I believe, less stress on the lumbar. He did a study because there was like an argument with him versus someone else. I can't remember who, but basically the argument was comparing squats to the hip thrust, and one was saying that squats would be more optimal, and he was saying the hip thrust would be more optimal for glute growth. But when they did the study, in the end, there was the same engagement for glutes for both exercises. It's just that the hip thrust helped isolate the glutes more than, say, the squats, whereas the squats, you hit a little bit more quads. I don't know what else was in there, to be honest. But I think that's like a great example that, like, if you're feeling it more in the split squat, then it's probably likely that the split squat is still hitting your glutes just as well, but you're also hitting a lot of the other muscle groups that you want to improve anyways. So if you're down for it, you got a lot of questions in the Q&A, and normally I fuck up and I always get to the Q&A way too late, and then we end up not being able to ask any of the questions. So if you're down to jump to it, but I have one question for myself personally before we go to it. But I guess, what would you say was your favorite prep that you feel like you brought your best package?
Yeah, as cliche as it sounds, the Arnold Classic prep of last year was my favorite. Why? Because I had no expectation at all about myself, how I would place in the show. My coach, when I traveled to Ohio for the competition, my coach, he came to our apartment and he was like talking to Marley, my partner. He was like, "Is Wesley always so relaxed? He doesn't stress. He's always like this." He was like, "Yeah, this is just how he is." And that's exactly how it was. I was like, okay, I know I've done everything I could. I know I look as great as I can. I've practiced the posing, like I'm prepared for the competition. All I want to do is beat one guy who beat me at the Olympia. Like one of those guys who beat me at that last year's Olympia, I want to beat at the Arnold. That's the only goal I had. If I had that, I already won, because then that would place me one rank higher than before. So that just goes to show that when you approach a competition like with no expectations at all, it kind of also shows in your physique. It's like a fresher look. This is obviously bro science, and you can't prove this really in science, but maybe you can with lower cortisol, less water retention, stuff like this. But still, it's not having the stress that you just roll into the competition so smoothly, and you're not trying to seek out the most optimal peak or the most optimal carb up. You're just following your coach's orders. You're not taking anything to the extreme. And all of a sudden you just show up at your best ever. And I went on stage and I didn't even realize how well I placed, because in the prejudging you kind of know already which place you could have. And I got off stage, and then my coach came to me kind of congratulating me, like, "Oh, you're gonna be second or first." I'm like, really? I didn't even realize what was happening. I just did my thing as a bodybuilder on stage, but yeah, I didn't even realize I was next to Ramon the whole time. And that was really the best feeling ever, because I felt great. I still had energy, no stress. Everything went smooth. And so it just all came together perfectly for me at that show. So yeah, that show was my favorite one.
Dude, I love that you say that, because it's just so crazy that, back in the past, bodybuilders used to have the mentality of like, oh, you got to work as hard as possible. Like, I'm going to be number one type crap.
Yeah.
But I think there's just like a small percentage of people, like everyone's a little bit different. And I think there is a small percentage of people like Nick Walker that can maybe do that and work better under pressure. But I think the vast majority, and this is seen, like I've experienced this myself when I got my pro card. Like I kept getting like 16 plus place at nationals. I was doing terribly. I did 9 shows. I wasn't like gifted from the start, but by the time that I was at my last 2 shows before I got my pro card, I almost felt like, whatever happens. I'm not going to get it anymore. Like I was like so depressed from not getting it that I ended up releasing all expectations. And I'm sure you've heard the saying, like, expectations are suffering. Like I ended up just like saying like, you know what, fuck it. Like I'm just going to come here and try to do the best I can. But like, I keep losing. So like, why expect anything? And then out of nowhere, they're like giving me my pro card and it doesn't register for the next week. I didn't feel any emotions. I didn't even it wasn't until a week after that I started celebrating a lot.
But that's so nice. That's so nice.
And so like I hear, you hear John Jewett talk about this, you hear Fua discuss this. There's a lot of just top experienced bodybuilders that nowadays all talk about this total allostatic load, where like you reduce psychological stress, you reduce mental stress, you do reduce physical stress, just reducing these stresses and making sure that you're managing them to a good level, and you always bring the best package.
Yeah, it's we all know that's the truth, especially now you have experienced it, I've experienced it, but at the same time it's so difficult to master, especially like when you won your pro card and when I won the Arnold, you automatically create a better position for yourself within the industry, and that within itself brings you a little bit more pressure to do well. To give a practical example, when you win a bigger show, you get more sponsorships, or you improve the current sponsorships you have, so you're doing better financially for your family. So it's almost impossible to ignore the fact that you kind of have to be at this level now, and you can't really let go so easily anymore, because you're afraid that if you do, it's like you don't care whether you lose all those sponsorships or not, for example. That's like if I lose a competition, the competition itself I don't care about, but it's the things around it that makes it important to do well. And that is I think the practical difficult part about bodybuilding, and on a higher level, is that sometimes the placings and how well you do correlate a lot with your success as in your career in general. Like not as a bodybuilder, but just as like making money for yourself, like providing for your family. So that's going to be always a difficult part. The moment that you do exceed expectation, from that moment it's going to be more difficult to find that balance of trying not to care too much, but also you have to care a little bit, because if you don't do well, it's at some point it's going to affect your livelihood potentially. So that's always a good balance to find out what the best way is to approach. But yeah, I thought usually when you win a show, it can fuel you positively, because a lot of people then believe in you. You have proven to yourself, hey, wait a second, I can do this. So it can give you a lot of positive energy as well. But then almost simultaneously, it's only going to get more difficult from now on, because you're going to face even larger challenges. Like for me, it was after the Arnold, I still had to beat the best ever, like Chris Bumstead. And that inevitably brings more pressure, because okay, this is going to be a different kind of challenge. And then I went a little too far, and it kind of went backward for me from that point. But yeah, it's that's what bodybuilding is about sometimes, dealing with the situations. And that's why I always loved to be the underdog back in the day. Like no one really talking about me. I'm just going to go to the show. no one really has expectations, so it makes it easier for yourself as well. But at the highest level, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but we're still doing our best to stay level-headed into those bigger shows.
Yeah. That actually brought me to thinking about something that you were discussing with Vigor Steve at one of y'all's podcasts together, which I really like, which every single, like, I feel like almost every advanced and experienced bodybuilder that I've spoken to says the exact same thing, but it's always those couple of people in the reels or TikToks, you know, like on the Explore feed that are just like, no, you got to take the biggest dosages to win, which is crazy. But I like how you guys were discussing like trend use, right? And how, you know, there's a very low maximum tolerable dose for a lot of people, but also an extremely low minimum effective dose. Like you really don't need that much to experience and gain the most benefits from it, right? Including like decreasing cortisol. So one of my friends, when he was competing, he had like the best genetics. His name was Nathan, my boy Nathan Brooks. He was the person I did the first podcast with, if anyone's been here since then. But he looked like, in my personal opinion, he looked like a Ramon Dino, he just fucking looked amazing, bro. Giant gorilla arms, massive legs, was younger than me, but would be squatting like 5 plates for reps, just, you know, casually. When he did his first competition, you know, of course, bro looked absolutely amazing. And, you know, I was always curious, like, how is he going to do? I feel like he's going to get first. Well, lo and behold, dude gets first place in overall. But shortly right after he gets first place, he decides to quit competing forever. And like, this blew my mind. But during the experience, you know, the last few weeks, like it was messing with his mental health so much that he felt like it wasn't conducive to his overall health at all, and he just wasn't getting any sleep. And this has me thinking like of a lot of people who, when they do compete, I think, you know, we have to like really focus in and learn our own bodies and how we react to things, how we react to our training, how we react to our diet, and especially how we react to whatever drugs that we're using. Because I think in the end, like if you're doing too much, it just takes the chill away from you, right?
Yeah.
And if it takes the chill away from you, man, you're caring about every little thing that goes wrong. You're getting aggravated or bothered by every small thing that isn't going the right way. You're not getting the correct sleep, which is only exacerbating all of those things and even more, you know? And it's just like, in the end, I personally feel like this whole idea of like going as high as you possibly can, hiring the doses and increasing the doses more, is just hurting a lot of people in the butt, or biting a lot of people in the butt. So what I always say is like, every person has like an optimal dose for them, but you just have to figure out what it is. And it doesn't mean 500 milligrams plus of Tren a week. Some people maybe, but I really think most people probably don't need that much.
No, for sure. I mean, it kind of makes me think about the original Tren, the Parabolan amps of, I think, 76 milligrams. And those were then prescribed to use once a week, I think, or at least that dosage once a week. And that goes to show that it was designed for that being the effective dose. But obviously bodybuilders, they go way, way higher with everything. But the side effects, they exponentially go up with the usage of something like Tren. And what I've experienced myself, like, I think a bodybuilder, no matter who it is, would be lying if they would not have experimented with higher dosage at one point, just to see what it does, and to then realize a higher dosage actually at some point comes with only negatives rather than anything positive on top. So with Tren is the best example. As you mentioned, the moment that you stress about everything and your sleep starts to suffer, no matter what you do or eat or use or train or supplement with, it's not going to fix those issues. Like the basics, having those in check and being able to have that in check for the duration of the prep is the most important. And anything that messes that up is not worth it. So for some people, they like John Jewett as an example, sometimes he even throws out tren completely at the end. And that's because he manipulates his diet, his activity level, and his training, and his nutrition to such a way that he's going to be lean enough, far enough beforehand that tren isn't necessary. It might make it easier sometimes to get into great shape, but it should never be a must.
Yep.
And too many people experience the negatives from this. And like we talked about a lot before already, like the stress will just kill your progress. Like not only the mental stress, but also it then turns into physical stress, and then turns into less muscle retention. And that's going to be a negative spiral, because the moment you start to become weaker in the gym or you feel less strong, then you're going to think, oh, I got to use more to compensate for this. So it's going to be climbing up more, and you get more side effects from it. So that's when I, throughout the years, realized I can use less and less and less. And it actually makes me feel better, which allows me to sleep better. It allows me to get my need up without realizing it, like more steps, being more active, not being so down. So I'm more active with my kids automatically, and it brings you in a better shape than initially thinking that it was tren that needs to be responsible for this. But in fact, it's just your capability of staying active throughout the whole prep and staying good spirited and strong. It all has to do with the basics, like the sleep, the nutrition, and the higher activity level without draining you too much. And that combination will always be better than any drug you take. The only reason you should take anything is muscle retention, and there's not so much needed as people think to make that happen in the contest prep. In my opinion, the less you can use, the better your physique will look on stage. The less skin flare-ups you will have, the less, the better your sleep will be, the better you will look, the fresher you will look, the fuller you will look, the less hungry you will have, the less stress you will have from that. It's just, it can be either only positives or only negatives depending on the milligrams of tren that you use. So I think it's very important to keep mentioning something like this, because I think most of the younger generation will always think the more muscular you are or the better you do in a show correlates exactly with how much you use. But it's almost the exact opposite. I mean, the winner is the winner because of the fact he doesn't need to use so much, because the rest has to use so much, and they meet that stress barrier that prevents you from showing such a peaked physique. I think almost, and this is like a theory, but I think almost all physiques that you can just see are peaked perfectly. Like, to give an example, at this past Arnold, like Derek Lunsford's physique, it was peaked so nicely. It might be that he used way less drugs than before, for example, to allow his physique to actually showcase its true potential. And that's what I've experienced with the Arnold as well. And whenever you try to do more, it always ends up not looking as good as before. So it really, in my personal experience, using as less as possible that you can get away with, and at the same time not stressing about this again. Don't stress about using less, because that will counteract it. You gotta believe in the fact that less usage, but sticking to the basics, will be better in your prep. And when you believe it, you get like the double effect of it actually being true, but also the extra placebo effect on top that will get you a better result. So the mind is really strong in this. That's what people underestimate quite a lot.
Yeah, dude, that's why I feel like it's so cool or it's just so important and helpful to have like a really good coach that you trust that's also really good with communicating with you, like freaking Stefan, Hani, and Patrick. Like all of these guys just have that level of communication where you're like, it's like an uncle or an older brother or like even like a dad figure. Like you're like, I trust this guy, and they know how to talk to you whenever you're in times of like stress. It's something that I think all of these coaches know too. I have one pushback on what you mentioned is that I do know that there are obviously some competitors that have pushed the limits of their gear usage that still got first place. But I think a majority of people that I've seen that have gotten first place recently have found their balance and pulled back. And not trying to like spill too much. I know Nick Walker is a good example of recently who has under Kyle taken, we could probably assume whatever dosages he's taken before, and for this show has probably been on not GH, but half of like the androgen load. And I think for a lot of us, for you, for me, Daniel Fabode mentioned this on the podcast too, who I believe, I think you beat one placement at the Detroit Pro. But we all have experienced like, I guess, gear usage and trend usage to the point where it's almost like when you're peaking for a show and you're trying to carb up, like we all know that you can take too many carbs. You can consume too many carbs, and you can also consume too less of carbs. And like there's like just this perfect balance point in the middle where that's like your peak look, right? And you know, if you take no gear whatsoever, obviously you're going to look more flat. There's going to be this like, you know, there's this natural look that everybody already knows. But if you take too much gear, like I've noticed when I take, say, like too much trend or too many compounds altogether, it's like when I consume too many carbs, I just get bigger and I get more full and more full and more full, but it starts taking away from my detail. Like the striations in my muscles, the lines that I want to show, my glute striations are not as like thin and dark, you know. And it's just, and I know that in Classic, for example, man, they are just they're really, I think they're really rewarding the conditioning. I feel like they've been rewarding conditioning for a long time, honestly, but like, you know, you see the most striated guys, even if they don't have the proportions, they still do really, really well.
True. I think it also correlates with the quality of one's physique. Like the more striations you can see, the higher quality / density the muscle is able to showcase. And when you have like some people are very conditioned, but they're not detailed. It's like you can see that, okay, their glutes, they have lines in them, but some body parts, they don't have any detail at all. It's like very strange sometimes, but that happens. And I think when you're able to show like striations pretty much everywhere, it also goes to show the quality of your physique. And if you can show that quality, it means a lot, almost no water retention, which means low inflammation, which almost automatically means lower usage of PEDs, because higher usage of PEDs usually correlates with higher inflammation, or at least higher retention of water. And it gives you fullness, but at the same time, as you mentioned, it blurs a little bit the lines that your muscles do have. And I will always be more of a fan of showing the maximum amount of striations and details and literally that carved out muscle, and getting the fullness through sheer muscle mass than getting the fullness a little bit artificially through water retention from using more PEDs. And that's the ultimate balance to strive for, because obviously if you use zero testosterone, you're not going to be able to show a full physique at all. You might show striations, but we all know those natural guys, they are the driest bodybuilders on earth, but they're always very flat as well. They're never full. They never have full cap delts, for example. So you gotta strike a balance here. But I think, in my opinion, it's more beautiful to show those striated muscles, to kind of literally showcase how hard you worked for it, than to kind of inflate them with PEDs. And there's always going to be a balance there. But yeah, that's my bodybuilding opinion.
Been training for over 15 years now, and I was too lazy to track anything training wise for about the first 10 years, because science-based training's for pussies. But I kept hitting plateaus from burnout, fatigue, joint issues, and injuries, and other factors that at the time I didn't really fully understand, realizing not everyone is built to handle the intense and same workload and injury resilience as Tom Platz and Ronnie Coleman. Sad face. I wanted to speed run that shit, but the reality is dudes that have always known their body best are the ones that have been lifting for at least a decade. Shit takes a long ass time to figure out. I started tracking all my training on the Notes app on iPhone, because I don't know what paper is. Until recently, I started using the RP Hypertrophy app. The RP Hypertrophy app spoon feeds you step-by-step workouts tailored towards whatever your focus is, or you can customize the workout yourself. Well-educated coaches have always cost $250 to $500 or more a month. I'm paying $500. That's like 10 bottles of testosterone. But if you're not competing or you don't have the money to spend, the app will adjust your program for you every week to maximize your long-term growth. It'll base this on your pump, how fatigued you feel, how your joints feel, and more. It takes in everything to account. None of which I took into account in college because the only accounting I did was counting how many dumpies were in my class. Look, there's a titty. If you don't believe in science-based training, you don't got to do no 3 RIR shit. You can just hoist heavy steel and track it, because we all know that the people who say that they remember their weights, sets, and reps every week are full of shit. IMO, there's a sort of middle ground where you track your progress and make sure all the variables are right in your food, sleep, gear, progressive overload, and then you go to the gym and slam those heavy PRs until your blood pressure is higher than Miley Cyrus. If you're still unsure, they've got a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you still don't like it and it gives you a bad tan, you can get your money back. That way, when you compete at your next show, your tan doesn't cost you the first place that you so well deserve. So go to the link in the description below, or you go to rpstrength.com/Nile and use code Nile at checkout. That's rpstrength.com/Nile, code Nile at checkout. All right, let's jump to this Q&A super quick.
Yeah.
Punk Rock Fit asks, when are you going to screw the weight cap, blow up them legs, and go open?
Well, honestly, people, because there's a weight cap in classic physique, people think I'm gonna take that into account, but trust me, I'm not holding back anything in the off season to grow. So it's not like, oh, I have a weight cap, so I gotta put a brake on growing. I still have the mindset of maximizing my growth, but I automatically want to stay a little lean, because it's useless to pack on 10 extra pounds of fat. That's going to be, you got to have to diet off anyway. It's just going to make the prep longer and your body more unhealthy. So that's the only reason why I stay a little leaner than usual. But this off season, that's not going to be my priority, but health is the priority in combination with muscle mass. But in terms of screwing the weight cap, eventually in my career, I do want to do an open show. So I still want to first maximize my potential in classic physique, because I think it would be a shame if you've won a big show before to then all of a sudden give up the whole class. Yeah. So I still want to really maximize what I can do here. And once I realize, okay, I've done everything I could, when now it's time for an open show, it's going to happen. But at what point, I don't know, but it's going to happen for sure.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, obviously you have one of the most 70s proportioned physiques, period. So I think it would be a shame to leave classic so early.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Owen Warlow asks, where does he get his golden rice from? I need that in my life.
Well, the golden rice, I don't get it from anywhere. It's just your favorite rice, and you combine it with either turmeric powder or fresh turmeric in the rice cooker. Usually, because in a rice cooker you don't lose anything through straining it afterwards. And you can add like black pepper or a little bit of salt, for example, to enhance the flavor. But just a little bit of turmeric powder already enhances the look of the golden rice. And if you're tired of if you find it difficult to eat your meals, and making it look more appealing also makes it easier to eat. You don't always want to eat like a big heap of white, boring rice. If you give it a special color and a little bit of spice, it's going to be a little more tasty and look better and more exciting to eat. So that's one of my favorite things to do to rice.
That's hilarious. Yellow rice has always been more aesthetically pleasing and tasteful for me for some reason too. Viti asks, does he train abs?
Yeah, I train abs. Abs to me is a combination of training the transverse abdominis, so the vacuum muscles to pull in the stomach, but also purely the rectus abdominis, which is the six-pack abs, pretty much the same way as any other muscle group, like 10 to 15 reps, as heavy as needed to go to failure in that rep range. If you want to develop more muscle mass in the abs, like if you're lean and your abs don't really show that much yet, you simply need more muscle mass there. And that's what I neglected abs for a few years back in the day, because I thought, oh, they're going to remain the same anyway. When I get lean, they're going to show up. But at some point, they started actually getting smaller or less pronounced, even when I was fully lean, and it looked really strange. Like you do like a hand clasped most muscular. Everything is striated, and the abs are like not showing. It's like flat. It was like, oh, this is not complete. As Arnold said, the center of your body is where everybody looks at, which is your abs. That's the first thing you kind of look at. And if those disappear, it takes away from the rest of your body as well. Yeah. So I train the abs just the same as the rest of the muscle groups. So like cable crunches with a heavy weight, and also decline leg raises after that, so I can actually hit failure pretty soon, so they're already fatigued. But just simple stuff and a vacuum to keep the waist as small and controllable as possible.
Yeah, I can agree with all of that too. I had my own experience where I didn't have any of those like upper external obliques, like the fish gills. And I always thought it was just my genetics. I would like, in my own head, I blamed my genetics, and then I trained them specifically with these side upper oblique crunches with cables for like 4 or 5 years, and pop, they came out of nowhere. Started doing some Jeff Seed poses.
Nice.
JC Physique asks, how long did you train naturally before hopping on PEDs, and how old were you when you hopped on?
I was 7 years I trained without them. Then I did my first bodybuilding show naturally, which I won the overall. And that's when I realized, okay, if I wanted to turn this into a career and win next year, like at a higher level, I either have to say, okay, I'm going to do this for fun, or I want to turn this into a career. And that's pretty much when I started using PEDs to kind of go through an evolution in my physique. I gained, let's see, 14 kilograms, which is over 30 pounds during the prep for the next show.
Whoa.
So I was, and that was like a minimal, I don't even remember the cycle, but it was, the gym owner back then gave me advice, and he gave me good advice because he said, start as low as possible. So it was maybe a little higher than TRT, and during the contest, I think something was added near the end. I don't even remember exactly what it was, because I didn't really have a lot of care for the PED side. I just wanted to make progress in bodybuilding. I was too young to really do my investigation back then.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
But I still, and when I realized how much I transformed in that time, I was like, whoa, this is a different story. But then you kind of also know you have the genetics to do well, because then I first only won the junior classes and the overall there, but then I won like the entire show as a 21-year-old. I won like from everybody, all the adults, basically all the older guys. I won everything, and that's when I turned. I was 21, and I was already a top amateur in the Netherlands back then, without even realizing that it was like how normally difficult that would be. To me, it was quite easy to do, but that was like, it happened so quick for me back then. I didn't even realize how quick everything went until looking back. I was like, whoa, there was quite a lot of shows that I won back to back without even realizing how that's not normal. But I didn't even know, because I had no other experience. I never experienced a loss all the way until my first Olympia, basically. So that was very special time.
Damn, Wesley, it must be nice.
Yeah, it's nice, but also very humbling once you reach the true professional level, how much of a difference there is between amateurs and professionals. At first you win everything and you're used to this, and then all of a sudden you have shared 14th place at the Mr. Olympia. It's a very humbling feeling, which you then have to think about, okay, do I still want to do this or not? Because it's such an investment to go from the Netherlands to Las Vegas, especially back then. I took the whole family with me, because they were like, okay, you keep winning, now we want to see it for ourselves as well. And then everybody was in Las Vegas, and I end up like 14th. It was a very humbling experience, but I learned a lot from it. And now every time I lose I always look at the reason why and I learn from it. So I try to make it as valuable as possible.
That's awesome. That's cool. Troy Wellen asks, what made you switch from free weights to machines? Maybe.
Yeah, so I used to do a lot of free weights that we talked about before, like all the classic exercises, the T-bar row, bent over row, the bench press, incline, like everything you can imagine. But at some point, if you keep doing that year after year, you start to notice a little bit of irritations in the joints here and there, rotator cuffs. Then you move to machines where you don't feel it as much, like moving from an incline heavy dumbbell fly to a pec deck or a cable fly already puts less pressure on the shoulders, as an example, and slowly you find out which machines suit you better than which free exercises that are the same. And now I know exactly, now I train, I think 80% machine, 20% free weight, because it simply is better for my longevity in bodybuilding, basically.
Gotcha. How old were you when you first started lifting, by the
way? 14.
14. Okay, cool. I beat you by a year.
Nice.
Troy Wellen asks opinion on Nandrolone.
Haven't used it for many years. The only most recent experience, like years ago, I've had with it is NPP, like the fast acting or less slow acting version of it. And I've used Deca only once ever. And that was, I think, 10, maybe literally 10 years ago. And what I know about it is more from what I hear from other people than what I noticed myself. But back in the day, I used to have gynecomastia from puberty, but then I took the Deca in combination with testosterone, and then it exacerbated that a lot. So if you are estrogen sensitive and you take it with testosterone, it's gonna make it a lot worse, the symptoms. And pretty much ever since then, I've never used it anymore. But they say it can mess up your anxiety levels. Yeah. It can mess up because prolactin goes up, which then messes with your erection quality, for example, or your blood flow in general. And it only really works for you if you're fit for it, if you know that you don't really have any side effects from it. It's pretty much how almost all drugs work. Some people, they swear by like Boldenone, and others, they feel a lot of anxiety with it, for example. So that's the difference. How your makeup in your brain dictates the kind of drug you should take for maximum result, because ultimately we only want muscle growth. We don't want all those other effects, but sometimes you just have to deal with them and find out, okay, this drug has this side effect, which is just, in comparison to how much muscle it builds, not worth it. It's not conducive to long-term progress. And then you got to move to another one that feels better for you overall.
Yeah. Totally agree. I like what Stefan says about it, where he's like, if you have anxiety issues with Nandrolone, don't take Nandrolone. If you have like hematocrit issues, don't take EQ, etc. If you have hair loss issues, probably avoid like Primo or something.
Yeah.
Do you happen to, are there any like favorite supplements that you take, or supplements that you really like to take for your like organ protection, long-term health, reducing oxidative stress types of situations?
Yeah, about the basics, which, because of the basics, people don't really talk about it as much, but it's very important in my opinion. Like things like omega-3, high quality ones, because I do so many blood tests, I know exactly the effect they can have. And it's my LDL cholesterol is extremely low always. HDL is also too low, but if LDL is low, like very low, it really doesn't matter what the HDL is, because the LDL is more telling of unhealthy cardiovascular system than a high HDL and a high LDL. But omega-3 has a profound effect on this. It also is very good for cell membranes to keep them more elastic and more permissible for vitamins and minerals to go through it, and to kind of for your metabolism in general, also for insulin sensitivity. And a lot of people get way too much omega-6, which is inflammation promoting, and too little omega-3, which is inflammation prevents it or lowers it. And also vitamin D3 in combination with K2 to make sure that the calcium that you have in your system and that you ingest is actually absorbed and goes to the right place. So it's going to the bones and other areas where it's needed, rather than hanging out in the vascular system where you don't want it for plaque buildup. That's also something, a lot of people take vitamin D3 and it promotes like the calcium absorption, but it doesn't promote the transportation to where it needs to go, which is where the K2 comes in. So always take both at the same time. And I've recently, and this is too big of a subject to really dive into, but I've done a DNA test, and now with ChatGPT, like I did a DNA test to see what my ancestry was originally, but it comes with a lot of other raw data. So I uploaded it to ChatGPT and I asked it, find out for me everything that's relevant for bodybuilding. And I mentioned a few of the symptoms that I was feeling and having. And it came up with a lot of like those SMPs, I think they're called, like genetic markers that stand for an effect in your body. And for me, for example, I always have to look out for that I don't have the best genes for insulin sensitivity or the best genes for cholesterol. Like stuff like this comes out of that result, and you know exactly which supplements work the best for you. But also liposomal glutathione, if I say it correctly.
Yeah.
I need to take that because my methylation in my body isn't very efficient because of my genes, apparently. So literally genetics plays a way bigger role than people think. And you always get these broad supplementation recommendations. Oh, this is good for you, this is not necessary. But sometimes if you want to improve something specifically in your body, like a DNA test, like literally looking at your genes can tell you a lot. But it is kind of in the forefront of science still, and I think in the future it'll play a way bigger role. But like supplements like B vitamins and glutathione and stuff, they all work together to improve this, which will make the chemical makeup of your brain better, more efficient, allowing for better sleep, less stress, less anxiety, all of this stuff, which is ultimately going to be better for health and progress in bodybuilding. So I really tailor my supplementation also to literally my DNA, and but that might be a little going too far for most people. But there's always going to be what?
No, I'll tell you in a second. Keep going.
And let's see what else I take. I take quite a lot, but it's not necessary to say everything, I think. And generally also, like, we used to think creatine also was like purely for performance, but I also happen to have the gene for increased chance for Alzheimer's, which
same.
Which also famously the Thor actor also has, and he has done like a lot of research for it. But you can do stuff early on, like pretty much the moment you turn 30, it kind of already starts to develop if you don't do anything about it, and it only starts to show like at 60 plus. But it doesn't mean you can't do something about it sooner. So that's why the omega-3 is so high, and the anti-inflammatory supplements, but also creatine actually helps to prevent a lot of these symptoms and to prevent you from getting it maybe at all. Like, it's a combination of all of this stuff that could really prevent a lot of those things, at least from happening for many years in advance. So I think those were the most important ones that and magnesium also, by the way, important mineral. Take it pretty much with every meal. as people really underestimate how much of a deficiency you can have, and it's very difficult to get out from your foods. So you might as well supplement with it, and the maximum tolerable dose is so much higher that it's difficult to overdose with. So you might as well take a little too much. Preferably magnesium bisglycinate, for example. If you take citrate or the other one,
citrate.
Yeah, citrate. You will notice that you take too much by going to the bathroom. It draws a lot of extra fluids into the intestines, and it's not going to be too pleasant. So with most supplements, like if you take too much creatine, too much magnesium, you will notice it with your digestion as well. So, but most of those supplements I mentioned, you can take in a quite high dosage, like the vitamin D3 at least, omega-3 very high. Creatine I take around 15 grams a day, and all of and magnesium quite high as well. And as long as you don't have any digestion side effects, it's only going to be good for you, in my opinion.
I love that you said all of this, because I wish we had more time, because I feel like we could talk about this for hours, to be honest. I don't know if you know of Dr. Dean, but I had him. Love Dr. Dean. Had him on my podcast. Also just filmed another one with him too, and he's probably going to come back on again. And my audience freaking loves him. They love hearing about all the supplementation and everything to optimize health. And we both also got our DNA tested as well. So you're the second person I've heard also get this done, which is super, super cool. I originally got mine from 23andMe, and then I imported, he and I both actually got our raw data from there and put it into Prometheus. So this is really cool to hear that you put this on ChatGPT, because I think I'm going to do that now. I found out a lot of the same things. And one of the things, for example, was like that I found out that I have a higher percentage than the average of slow twitch fibers. There's this thing called like muscle performance impairment, which essentially just means I probably would not be a good power lifter. So I continue to train in high volume, and that would be more optimal than me. And then I also found out all these other things, such as I have a higher risk for Alzheimer's, high blood pressure, and some various aspects of cardiovascular disease do run in my family. So I had to be very particular about that. Take such as bergamot, nattokinase, telmisartan, just a bunch of other things, for that. But yeah, I mean, I just love that you said that, because I like to tell people, even if they feel like the government's going to take all their data and their info and shit, it's very, I think it's super helpful.
Honestly, you should be in charge of that before they even understand it themselves. So you tested it and you understand it way better now than the government would at this point, because you're doing your own research and you can then already do something about it before somehow they can. But the DNA testing is very interesting. It's just unfortunate that if you want to, I don't know how it's called anymore, but you can do different tests. Like I did the ancestry test, so it only takes a part of your genome that you can find out what your ancestry is, but automatically you take those other genes with it. But if you want to test your entire genome, it's going to be a lot more expensive, of course. I don't know which one you've done, but I've done it at MyHeritage like 7 years ago, and that I still have that raw data. So I only recently was able to use ChatGPT for it, as now it's advanced enough to understand it. But I've also done it at sequencing.com, and I don't recommend it yet because I haven't had the results yet, but I paid quite a premium to test my entire genome. So not just a small portion, but the entirety of it. So you can get all your information. I think Dean did that as well, because he mentioned he can see how efficient his body metabolizes testosterone, for example, and other hormones. And sometimes if you do an ancestry test, those genes aren't found in the raw data. So, and there's a lot more interesting stuff. But yeah, it's interesting to talk about this, because I think this will be the future in supplementation and maybe even healthcare in general, to tailor your healthcare and what you eat and supplement with based on literally what you need. You know that for sure. So doing a blood test is kind of like an indirect way because you're seeing the result of what your genes are responsible for. But if you go to the root cause, it's your genes. It's going to be like some people, they have genetics that their LDL will be high regardless of anything they do. So if you know that, you also know that if you have that gene, it actually shows up as a high LDL in your blood test, but it's not as damaging to your system for somebody who doesn't have the gene but does have a high LDL because they ruined it themselves with bad lifestyle choices. But if it's genetic, it's not going to be as harmful. So it's like this a very interesting test you can do on yourself if you care enough to investigate about it, because it's a big topic, obviously, but it's going to be interesting for sure in the future.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited about it. I don't know. Things about genes always get me super excited. I don't know why, but yeah, thanks for sharing that. All right, let's just finish up just a few more questions and then we'll run out of here.
Sure.
A lot of people are excited that you're on the podcast, and they're also all thanking you for the weight drip idea.
Oh, nice.
How does it feel being a pioneer? A lot of these are good. Yochin Emerson asks, how do you stay so conditioned year round?
Yeah, it's like people ask me, do you ever do cheat meals or cheat days or something like that? I like to go. I used to be worse at this, but I got better. Like whenever I go out to eat, I like to go for quality over quantity. Some people, they somehow think in the regular life they're deprived of something. So the moment they have the chance, they let go way too much and they eat as much as they can of low quality stuff. It's like a waste of calories, in my opinion. So I go for the higher quality stuff, which is more expensive, which should automatically be a barrier not to eat too much. So learn that stuff like this is more about the experience, and you're going to go away satisfied regardless, but at least your stomach won't be bulging full and you won't be gaining too much fat from it. Like, I'm not saying you should never cheat or something, but if you can transform your thinking and your mindset around it a little bit, it's going to make it a lot easier never to overdo it so much. Because, for example, with every holiday like Easter or Father's Day or Christmas, we always with the family go to an all-you-can-eat buffet. But you have different kinds. You have you have the kind that you can eat a lot of like cheap foods, which you then do, or you can go to a higher quality one with like higher protein options of like high quality salmon or like beef. And if you eat those things like a steak, you can't eat a super high quantity of it, at least not compared to like fast food kind of buffets. And it's more expensive as well, so you're more mindful of choosing the foods that are worth it rather than just eating as much as you can. And also, to bring it back to like more practical stuff, your day-to-day diet should be structured in such a way that every week you should not gain more than 0.5% of body weight max in the off season. Like after a bodybuilding show or after a cutting phase, the first few weeks you will gain around 1 to 1.5% body weight. You're going to get it faster because of glycogen storage, extra water storage, but also you got to get back to a healthy body fat percentage because before quality progress can begin. But once you are in that stage where sleep is optimal again and you feel great, you feel energized, the body weight should not go up higher than 0.5% per week, because just imagine like if you're 200 pounds, that means 1 pound a week. If that is even if that already is purely muscle, you're going to gain like a lot of pounds by the end of your bulk, which is already unrealistic. So the more body weight you gain a week, the more of it will be fat, which you'll have to diet off by the end. So it's a double-edged sword or double negative basically, whereas in your off season you won't be satisfied with how you look as much, and you have to start your prep or your cutting phase sooner because you're carrying too much body weight. It's gonna, I can name all the negatives here. I don't want to be too negative, but I just want to motivate people. You can actually stay really lean or relatively lean by implementing this method of not gaining too much body weight each week and just calculating how much half a percent is of your body weight. Just weigh yourself every day as a data point. Take the average and compare it to the average of the last week. If it's around 0.5%, you're golden. Just stick around that and you will make more than enough gains to get stronger and build muscle mass. And and just make sure that if you fall victim to not, quote unquote, be able to control yourself from cheating, then put your favorite foods already as part of the diet so that it cannot be a cheat, because it's not a cheat, it's part of your regime, it's part of your routine. So like every single day I have a little bit of chocolate, and the whey drip we talked about before, that makes my meal taste so much better that the cravings for other sweets is a lot less. So it makes it easier not to eat extra on top of my diet. Of course, I do as well. I'm human. I have children. Obviously, I'm not a robot who does everything perfectly. But if you already implement these techniques, it's gonna save a lot of unnecessary pounds in the off season, and it's gonna be much better for health as well, which will be better for muscle gains.
Yeah, that's well put. Well put. The relationship with food is always the hardest thing for some people. I know it just varies per person, but just like you said, adapting that to what your relationship with food is to continuously improve your relationship over time, I think is the best.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you have to answer this one, but Bram Grayling asks, what's the most experimental drug you used and was it worth it?
I think the thing people are talking about now, the SLU PP332, I don't know how experimental it is, but it is kind of not as researched in the literature, at least on people, compared to like other drugs, PEDs. But I also follow Vigorous Steve quite a lot, and also Dean, and I listened to their anabolic roundtable, and it came up there. And I was like, well, they make such compelling points about it. Why not give it a shot? And the only downfall about it is that it's so expensive, in my opinion. So it's like, is it going to be worth it? Like some people say they notice effects from it right away, which, by the way, is mitochondrial efficiency, if I am correct about that, which means you will burn more energy pretty much doing nothing extra. It's like an exercise mimetic. So the moment you take it, it mimics as if your body is doing something extra, like an extra activity, which means you're going to be burning on a net basis more calories than if you didn't take it. And it supposedly doesn't have any side effects, which would obviously be great. But I'm not sure yet if it's something you can, for example, use it instead of Clen, for example, that would be a big win. If you can use something that has side effects with something that doesn't have side effects, then it would justify the price point. But it's still not as researched enough that you don't really know which dosage is good. Like, is it 200 micrograms? Is it 600? I don't know. I'm somebody, and this comes also from the DNA test. I don't notice pretty much anything from whatever I take, whether it's alcohol or drugs or pre-workouts. I always stay level. It doesn't matter what I do or take. It's not like I'm really noticing much, and that's also genetic. So I can't notice something right away. Like with Clen, at least you can still see, okay, at the beginning at least you're getting a little bit shaky, so you know it's doing something. And your heart rate increases a little bit, but with SLU, it's a bit more difficult to distinguish the actual effect. And because the price point is pretty high, it's like, I'm not entirely sure yet if it's worth it, but there's so many people who claim it does a lot for them that it's hard to ignore. But as I mentioned before, everybody's different in this regard. But that's pretty much the most experimental thing I've taken.
I love that. I'm glad that you shared that, because I've heard mixed reviews on it too. I hear some people say that they've noticed, like John Jewett and some of his clients or anecdotes here, feel that they have not, like it's almost negligible, I guess, the amount of fat loss they've experienced. And then other people that feel like they've noticed it almost immediately. So it's interesting.
Yeah, the thing with experimental drugs is usually you don't take it alone. You always take it almost as an extra on top of whatever you're doing already. So it's very difficult to notice something if it has a small effect, like if you're using growth hormone, clen, yohimbine, a lot of PEDs. Are you really going to notice the difference from adding that on top? Maybe it does something, but because you're using all those other things already, it cannot really express itself, its potential as much, because your body is already being targeted by so many other fat-burning compounds. So maybe, like, I know Vigorous Steve himself usually does stuff on their own. Like I think he used the SLU on its own, and he said he noticed quite the effect. So I do trust him. So if I were to recommend it, I would say, okay, watch his video and see what he says about it, because he always does these deep dives, which means this is the most research you can find about it in that video. There's nothing really much left. So if that video does not convince you, I think it's still too early, but it might convince you anyway, because he did notice something. But yeah, it's a very interesting compound, maybe for the future as well.
Yeah. Have you heard of Myra Begrin?
Yes. That's that beta 3 antagonist, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I found a lot of interest in it since people propose it as a side effect free clen, but I don't know. I think the biggest benefit of it is that it relaxes the bladder muscles, or at least the impulse the bladder gives you to have to pee, so it doesn't wake you up in the night, which will promote sleep, which will promote fat burning. So that would be the ultimate side effect free thing to have, because it's like taking something that promotes sleep, but only if you wake up to pee, then it will have the biggest benefit. If you can get 8 hours of sleep no matter what, it might not have such a huge effect. But it's very hard to believe it's going to be the same effect as clenbuterol, because if it really did, maybe we should have heard about it a little bit more by now. This is exactly why I felt like I found it really this is exactly why I felt like I wanted to try it myself, because I had this conversation with Dr. Dean regarding sleep and reducing the amount of times that you wake up to pee. And he said for some people, if you're waking up to pee multiple times a night with a completely full bladder, it may be a good idea to look into mold being in your surroundings or in your own home. But if it comes to not being a full bladder or something, whether maybe it's either psychological or there is something else that is relieving you in between your sleep cycles of being in that deep enough sleep to stay there. And that's me right now. So I'm waking up 3 to 4 times a night to go pee. So this sounds kind of promising for me, man. This sounds really nice. But yeah, I don't know. I'll probably check it out and I'll let you guys all know what I find. Let's see if we can find one more question, because you have 100 questions here and we only have 4. But there's a lot. And Jeski asks, I want to ask him, als hij in trots Nederlander is. I don't know if I did that right.
I know. I actually understood that. Ja, ik ben een trotse Nederlander. Yes, I am a proud Dutchman.
I'm so glad you understood that. That's a big dub. These are all really good. This one seems a little bit more introspective. TJ Miller asks, what's something you would tell your younger self with the knowledge you have now?
Focus more on nutrition, because the first 6 years I got all of my gains from training, and the nutrition was sometimes I happened to hit my protein goal, sometimes not. It really was not a focus, because the moment you make progress, you're like, why change anything? Being a young self and not really having the internet or the forums or anything to guide me, I wasn't on there at all. So I just followed only the training my dad told me about. And the only thing he said is get some, it's called quark in the Netherlands, which is kind of like a Greek yogurt comparison. But that's the only thing I ate after the training. And that's the only change I made to my childhood diet that I still had to get some protein in. So I think nutrition plays, in my opinion, pretty much the biggest role overall in changing your physique in the long term. If you just train regularly, but your nutrition sucks, you will always look the same. But if you eat perfectly and you train normally, you will be able to make more progress over the long run. So I think nutrition is going to be definitely something I would have focused on a bit more. But at the same time, it's like, you don't want to ruin your childhood so early on by already having perfect meal plans at like 15 or 16. So I do think a lot of the generation now is social media, because unlike me, they are now exposed to what should be optimal, but then it kind of takes away like the freedom, which is the unique feeling of ignorance is bliss before you even know what that means. That is a feeling you can never get back once you're past that. Like once you know what is best for you, then it's over. You never will have the freedom again. So it's kind of hard to also take away, like for example, with my own children, we teach them what is healthy, but we don't force anything on them either. It's like I want them to have freedom in their mind for as long as possible, because the fondest memories I have of my childhood is just playing a game or something with my brother and not having a care in the world, like just being in the moment instead of thinking about the next thing to do. That is, the funny thing is, thinking about the future is the only thing that truly differentiates humans from the other animals in the world. But at the same time, it also is the only thing that stresses people out the most. Like thinking about consequences about what you're doing or of the future. So it's that really is a double-edged sword if you don't treat that properly.
Nice. Okay. J. Michael asks, was there a number of IUs of GH that you ever felt like was too much for you?
I think no, like lately I follow actually I follow like John Jewett Locke quite a lot, and I listen quite carefully to what his opinion is about growth hormone, and he currently is using around 10 IUs, I think. He's been doing this for quite a while, and I followed his course as well about growth hormone and what the effects are. The biggest benefit of using such a large amount is, I think, especially prevalent in the off-season, where you're able to eat more food and stay lean. But controversially, leanness promotes insulin sensitivity, but growth hormone affects it negatively as well. So there's a balance there. And I think for everybody, this is different. So we have two things that growth hormone really does. It affects fat burning and insulin sensitivity, but also your IGF-1 levels. So the best thing to do would be, first thing is find a legit source of growth hormone. This is the number one thing, of course. But once you know you have that, you start, like I think 4 units would be kind of the minimum to use if you don't want to waste your money, because I think between 2 and 3, most people who have decent genetics will already produce around that much, or at least enough of that with a similar effect. So 4 or higher should be, in my opinion, if you're going to use your money for it, the minimum dose if you want to have effects for muscle growth and fat burning. But your IGF-1 levels, for everybody, they have a different response to the amount of growth hormone they take. Like some people, they do a blood test and the IGF-1 levels are much higher. And for some people, they stay relatively the same as their natural levels. And maybe, I don't know for sure, but maybe for those people, I would not go super high with it, because for some people, it doesn't matter how high you go with growth hormone, the IGF-1 level doesn't really respond much more to it. The only thing happening is your insulin sensitivity or insulin resistance increases. So for those people, it's not worth it. But for me, around 5 units would be kind of the ideal dose of a balance between still being insulin sensitive throughout the entire year and having the fat burning properties and increasing the IGF-1 levels high enough for a muscle building effect, but also not too high where it takes over the side effect part of the equation. So I think around 5 units, not more than that isn't really needed for me personally.
Yeah, agree with absolutely everything you said. And my coach also had me at 4 for the last year and just bumped me up to 5 for the prep. So I'm in the same place too. And literally the only thing I would have to say, I guess, to all of this, which I also agree with and have experienced and have discussed with a lot of guests, is like if someone only had enough money to say inject like 2 to 3 IUs per day of GH, I feel like there is something to say about the theory of doing it at the opposite of when you go to bed. That way to hopefully sustain your natural GH production. And then on top of that, maybe you're just adding the 2 to 3 IUs, like say in the morning or something, fasted cardio, or maybe after meal 1, after a workout or something. So I think there's potential benefit there. But other than that, totally agree with just, if you're going to take it at all, probably aim for at least 4. Yeah. And then probably don't need to go much higher.
True.
Cool. Last question. Jack Steinruck asks, most important change you can make as an amateur for the most productive off season? Or I guess maybe also, if tailoring it to you, what have you found that has made probably the most in your own off season?
Yeah. So if we think about more from amateur to pro, and when I turned pro, what I did back then, I actually did log my lifts to kind of get familiar with getting honest with where does my failure point really lie. And instead of trying to remember my previous weights, to actually check your logbook and see how much weight you did last time, to make sure you dial in progressive overload, to get comfortable in that way of training. Especially around the weaker muscle groups, to make sure you are actually improving those rather than switching around exercises too much or workouts too much. Stick to one plan and progressively overload with that plan, and make sure to fuel those workouts with smart macronutrient distribution over the day. The off season is the only opportunity you have to really maximize carbs and to really recover from your workout, as opposed to prep where you are trying to sustain instead of like gain anything. So in the off season, I like to really maximize carbs around the workout, obviously, but also during breakfast when you've been fasting for the longest, higher protein, higher carbohydrate, and moderate to low fat, to make sure you maximize the glycogen storage at all times, to make sure you will always recover as quick as possible and maximize exercise performance, to ensure that you're able to progress your lifts for as long as possible in the off season, as that is the only proxy you have of muscle gain. Because week to week you don't notice anything in your physique, but you can notice something in your strength. And the only way to objectify this is to write it down and to make sure you do it with correct form. So that's how I made a lot of progress at the early pro days. And I went quite quickly to my weight cap that way. And but yeah, after a while, you got to find what works for you the best. But at first, you got to make sure that you know what progressive overload really means. And I would also, because automatically I did this, record yourself. For YouTube, I record myself quite often, my exercises, to see, you kind of remember, oh, that was a difficult set. Like a seated row, for example, you're beating your logbook with 1 rep, but then you can check your video footage to see, was your form actually not breaking down just to achieve that record again. So I learned a lot from watching my footage and seeing that my form wasn't as pristine as like the first warm-up sets. And then you can prevent fooling yourself and actually injuring yourself in the long term, because the best off seasons are the ones where you don't have any kind of injury or niggles or pains at all. So you can just have productive, energized workouts. And also don't forget the recovery from nutrition and also those 8 hours of sleep, how boring it may sound, is going to be the most productive thing you can do in your off season.
Yeah. Preach. I ask one last question at the end of every podcast for every guest, but if you were to disappear from the world tomorrow and you had one message to send to the entire world today, what would the message be?
A little bit in line with what we talked about before regarding your mindset about things. You can always approach every situation in two ways, in a negative or a positive way. How at face value, how negative it may seem, there's always going to be some kind of benefit you can pull out from the situation, which will turn your mindset around, which will give you less stress, and in turn make you just a nicer person to be around. Like, to give the practical example again, if I get downstairs and my kids are already up and they've made a mess of the living room, will I take this as a negative and punish them and start the day negatively? Or can I think about this as a nice, positive, active start of the day, see it as an opportunity to teach my children how to clean up after themselves, that they shouldn't be doing it? Just make every situation as positive as you can, and that will ultimately, as selfless as that sounds, you can turn it into something positively selfish by actually knowing it will reduce your own stress levels as well. So it's going to be good for everybody, going to be good for yourself, and going to be good for the people around you, because you will be a better person and less stressed. So the nicer you can be, the better life you and the people around you will have.
Love that mindset, man. Thanks for coming on the podcast. That was awesome.
Of course, very welcome. It was a joy to be here.
Thanks, bro. It was an honor to have you on, and I'm sure everyone's going to love this one a lot. So
awesome.
Hope you have a great rest of your day, and thanks for coming on again, bro.
You too, man. Thank you.
Peace.
See you.